Ever since John Wick, we've had a cornucopia of these type of closely tight-knit action choreographed movies like ballets. Some ballets are just ones that you wish you hadn't paid for, and others you wish you could see again for the first time. Like that experience when you first watched The Matrix. There are some movies that kind of stick with you. Is Fight or Flight one of them? Let's talk about it. A mercenary takes on the job of tracking down a target on a plane, but must protect her when they're surrounded by people trying to kill them both. Directed by James Madigan, this is a directorial debut for a feature film. He has worked as second unit or assistant director, loads of visual effects, TV series, and a few others that you might not have heard of, but this is his first time helming it all by himself in the director chair. And I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised by what I experienced within this movie. Now, first things first, I should say that Josh Hartnett was the one that made me gravitate to even checking this one out. It's a Sky original, so that already has some, it always seems to be like, when it comes to streaming platforms, you have Apple TV series that are great. You have Netflix TV series that are mostly good. And then you have their films that are very hit or miss. And for me, that's the same with Sky Originals. So I went in this with dubious but half expecting something decent because Josh Hartnett's in it. And I've been a fan ever since The Faculty. The Faculty. Been a big fan of Mr. Hartnett. So I was expecting something from him, even if the rest of the film is dire, he'll be entertaining to watch. And with a critical eye, you could probably say that's exactly what it is. You've seen this movie before, but it has elements of The Raid, great choreographed action fight scenes. But it's Raid on a plane, so it's got the skill, the craft of the choreographed scenes that you see in John Wick. But where you saw John Wick as being brutal at times, I would say The Raid is double that in brutality. Now take those brutal moments, add that on a plane, add buckets of gore, which 80% of the time lands on people's faces and bits of body parts. Yes, there is some CGI here that looks like blood splatter CGI, if that makes sense. However, I loved the action choreographed scenes. That's because this film knows exactly what it is. It's an action movie that gives you some background on a story, but then really gets stuck into the action pieces. And the reason why this film really works for me is that Josh Hartnett plays this as a man who's disheveled. He's a broken special forces, add all the things behind his name guy that you kind of, when he was in his prime, you'd want him there to do the job. But because of spoilers, he is just a broken, kind of a crazy man. So you add a little bit of Crank as well, the Jason Statham movie. That's kind of what you have. A little bit of mishmash, everything, putting this into a chaotic adventure in the sky. When it's in the sky, this film is working wonderfully. When it's on the ground, and we have backstory, montage, dumping of dialogue, exposition, it doesn't work. Katie Sackhoff is in this as well. Loved her in Battlestar Galactica. Enjoyed her in Star Wars. In this, I think she's a throwaway character, and I think her character could have had more if they wanted to do something with it. She is the MacGuffin that's kind of driving the story on the ground. There's another character that is also a throwaway character. In fact, the circumnavigating the story to push forward what's happening on screen or in the sky is like, well, I couldn't care less. You could have done some exposition with a person on the plane, and that would have been enough to carry out this film. All of those bits are throwaway, and critics are going to have a field day with that. For me, I was like, yeah, that doesn't work well. It also really hampers the tempo, the speed from when you're having great action sequences and then we have downtime. The downtime that we get on the plane is needed. You're breathing. So in between the dismemberments of bodies and the stabby stabs, you get downtime with Josh Hartnett and building the character that he's meant to be protecting against a plane full of assassins. Now that for me is definitely what I signed up for. All the other stuff you could just shove aside. And I think when going into this movie, just know that the story that places them on the plane is very forgettable. And that's okay, because what we get in the sky is fun. Mostly because Josh Hartnett is having so much fun. The film knows what it is and he's crazy with it. There's a comedy to this movie that I wasn't expecting. a comedy side with slapstick sort of dialogue in very violent action. When something happens to Josh Hartnett's character and he has to take drugs, for example, to keep going, sort of crank style moments. The contrast to the violence to what he's seeing is spectacular. The contrast to what we are hearing and how his facial expressions are exhibiting a man that is absolutely lost, enjoying what trip he's on, but then the violence that is happening around him works on many levels. And this is a plane that is 90% full. It's a double-decker bus plane, so there's lots of set pieces that you can have that this movie moves from place to place. So we go from the cargo room to first class to where everybody else is sitting because, you know, that's what most people can afford. And seeing how people react to this is sometimes unbelievable and sometimes believable. So you just got to kind of take it with a pinch of salt that everything that's kind of building the puzzle piece of this movie is not the sum of all its parts, because the sum of all its parts is the dismemberment of bodies and the enjoyment that Josh Hartnett is having with this. And I have to give it to the choreographed team. They did some spectacular things that we've seen that we expected, but on a plane makes it so much more different. Using an armchair to choke somebody out. Using things that you would find on a plane, every little bit from your dinner trays to the knives that aren't sharp, to the plates that aren't sharp, to the lighting fixtures. Everything is used to dismember or hurt people. And then there's the shockingly, amazingly amount of weapons that manage to get on this plane, because you have assassins and you're just kind of going, okay, yeah, they bought some people off and got all these weapons onto the plane. There's so much believability that you have to put to a side to enjoy this film. But I did thoroughly enjoy this film. It was like a breath of fresh air. I needed a movie that was pure escapism. I needed a movie that I didn't have to think or go, yeah, this is Oscar worthy. I needed a movie that I know that I'm going to watch again for the pure enjoyment of it. So it's 4 Nicolas Cages out of 5 for pure enjoyment.
You got one.
If I put my critical thinking hat and dissecting this movie to pieces, well, yeah, it'd be much, much lower, but I'm not going to be that great or fun at parties then. So let me know your thoughts below. Had you even heard of this? This is in the UK as an original Sky movie. I don't know when this is coming to the rest of the world, but maybe you can find it in other places and streaming platforms. I'm sure it'll be on VOD soon. Josh Hartnett, yeah man, need more of this. Check out my reviews. Thanks so much for watching, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.